What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Fit, Healthy, and most of all, Happy podcast. I'm your coach and host, Josh, here with
his co-host and co-coach, KG, and I'm in the house.
Coming at you live from the garage. Kyle made a few enhancements. He's got his car behind me, which is sick. And if you're not watching on video, you're missing out because we got some extra visuals here. And what's awesome about that too is it actually kind of works as a natural sound barrier. So the audio should be even way better than it was last week. We always try to make sure it's really excellent, but we always want it to be the best it can be, because me and Kyle always say how when we listen to podcasts, the second it's just constant crazy noise and it's really just takes away from the message. So we're doing everything we can to make this podcast the best it can be. Kyle's put in a lot of work, and once again, if you appreciate what we do, you appreciate this podcast, we get asked often, how can you support us? And we always like to say we're here to help you. That's ultimately our goal, and you can help us by helping yourself. So even just make sure to follow us on Instagram. There's a lot of value to be had there. If you're willing to share this podcast with a friend, either verbally, tell someone about it, share it on your story, anything like that, those are definitely the best ways to support us, and it really just means a lot and it helps this podcast grow. But without further ado, enough of that. We just wanted to say thank you, as we always do. We're going to jump into our episode today. This is Motivation Monday. It's time to get fired up. It's time to get after it. It's separation season. You might say, what's separation season? It's that time of year where we can either really kind of fall off or we can level up, do things bigger. We can separate from everyone else who's maybe getting a little cozy, taking their foot off the gas, missing some workouts, having 10 plates at Thanksgiving. And instead, it's really just learning about how to enjoy this time but still see progress and not undo all the hard work and then try to make up for it New Year's and end up feeling miserable because of it. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and jump into our quotes. And I think that's a great segue into my quote, which is, nothing will work unless you do. And I really just thought of this today because even I've been listening to the book called The Alchemist, and it's this tale essentially of this boy who goes off to fulfill his dream and look after this treasure essentially. But what I found really interesting about it too is if you don't actually set yourself to want to go achieve something, if you don't look for your potential, you're not going to find it. You can be totally happy just kind of cruising about, and I think a lot of people as a coping mechanism won't try. We all know that person will grab their belly and say, this is my six-pack or whatever, this is why I don't go to the gym. And it's one thing to accept it, and you should always be happy with where you are, absolutely, but I think it's good to say, hey, what am I capable of? Let's see how I do in the gym. Let's see how I do if I go for a run. What will it be like if I took my nutrition seriously? And you really have to put in that work at a very basic micro level of anything. So nothing will actually come together unless you want it to, and you get in there and you do the hard things. You put in that effort and you make it work. Just wishing for something, you're not going to find it. But if you look for your potential and you actually actively put in that work, you might be surprised that you find it, you redefine it, and you can keep doing that. And that's how you become great. You slowly do these things better and better, and it just starts from these tiny, tiny little decisions. So that was what was on my mind today, and that was my quote. So once again, nothing will work unless you do.
I like how that tied into separation season, and I will actually link that below as one of Ed Milet's podcast from Spotify 2 years ago, and every year we listen to it. And one of our awesome clients the other day had just shared it in our group saying, hey, it's the time of the year, and it was a great reminder just to separate yourself. Like Josh was saying, there is just over a month left in the year, I guess a month and a couple weeks. And this is the time where you can work, where you can put in that work. Like Josh said, nothing will work unless you do. And you can really get ahead of schedule. Stop planning for January 1st. Stop waiting and saying, I'm going to do it then. And it kind of ties into my quote as well, as just doing the hard stuff. So I know Josh has probably mentioned it 6 months ago, a year ago, and I'm sure he actually watched the video. It was a Motiversity video, which I'll also link down below. And it was just Tony Robbins, who I think is such a great speaker. And he was talking about manifestation and just doing hard stuff. So that quote really inspired me this morning. And basically how it goes is, hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times. So essentially, everyone can get different things from a quote, which is absolutely awesome, as I always say. But what really stood out here was just doing the hard stuff, showing up no matter what, even if you don't want to. It is amazing because it just creates a stronger version of you. Whereas if everything comes to you super easy, you don't have to really work for it. I have so much respect for people who overcome obstacles, for people who do hard things, for people who take that extra mile. And it actually reminds me, the other day, Josh sent me a video of this gentleman who had completed a marathon. It was a great YouTube video. It was inspiring. And I love looking to other people for inspiration, especially when it's something that isn't even or shouldn't even be possible. So this guy had undergone bronchitis. He was dealing with some personal things, like pretty much everything you could imagine was going wrong in his life. And I was honestly expecting him to just say, oh, well, I didn't do it. Who cares? Life happened. And he used that as motivation. He pushed through. He did it in under 4 hours, which was his goal, which was an amazing time. And it's so incredible when you look at these different people for different types of motivation, for inspiration, someone who has a story where it doesn't even make sense, but they still do it. I thought that was incredible. So this is what motivates me. Honestly, it's not the person who is given everything and, who has the perfect life. It's the people who push through no matter what. Even Josh, seeing him show up sometimes, it's been a early morning, going through some different things as well, like sleep-wise and whatnot with the little one. And I'm like, man, that's so motivating, because I'm like, he's showing up. He put 495 on the bar for squats, no matter what, no excuses, doing what you need to do. And honestly, I think you can really learn from these types of things and look for motivation from it.
Yeah, we've said before how if you look for a reason not to do something or why you can't do something, it's pretty easy to find it and talk your way into it. Whereas if you try and find creative solutions on what you can do, and even one thing I really push in this type of season is like obstacles are opportunities, and they're only really like negative if we let them be. And of course, that sounds like a little bit like, oh, that's great wishful thinking, but what if I break my arm? And don't get me wrong, that sucks. But like, even as that as an example, you could just study hard. You could just become so knowledgeable. You could spend extra time reading, recovering. You could spend extra time really learning nutrition, dialing down the best, healthiest foods for you. You could build your legs absolutely insane, or learn how to navigate training with a broken arm. Like, if you look at problems as like unsurmountable, then we've said before, you'll become victim to them. But in your journey, if you're like, okay, this happened to me, how can I adapt to it? I find it just a great way to live, and you'll continue to find ways to work through it. So definitely love that. I think the quotes came together perfectly. I think this time of season is just an excellent reminder of that, and really just to make the most of tough situations, for instance. So definitely think that is awesome. And we're going to get into our thoughts for this week. So once again, I mentioned our Instagram earlier, but I actually shared today, well, we're filming this, so this was in the past, some of my top tips of what I do to make sure I stay energized and as alert as I can first thing in the morning. So I shared that on our Instagram. We're always sharing extra content there, whether it be through our stories, through our reels, through our posts, through our broadcast channel, where we send like motivational morning voice notes. So you're missing out if you're not taking advantage of that. It's totally free. Our Instagram is @ColossusFit, ColossusFit. Sorry about that. So definitely be sure to check that out. And like, one of the things that really was just on my mind, and with this change of season, is to really make sure you're supplementing with your vitamin D. If you're not in a sunny place, obviously we're getting less sunlight exposure, and I find that can make a world of difference for energy. And also making a point to make sure you're still getting outside, you're still getting some sunlight when you can. And you might say, well, I'm not near a beach, it's cold, it's snowing. But when the sun's shining, just get out for a walk, stand outside, be by a window. It's amazing like what it can do for like your rhythms and how you feel. And I think it's just a great reminder to be on top of this. And it was funny, even like when I was talking about what I should pack for Florida last year, I was like, oh, I got to bring my vitamin D. And Kyle's like, why would you need that? And I'm like, oh, that's a good point. So if you are fortunate to be in a warm place, you can work around that. But you got to look at where you're at, what's going on. If you're in a winter wonderland, embrace it. Find some activities, take advantage of that. I had also shared on the story too how I've been waiting 60 to 90 minutes to have my coffee. Like most people, I wake up and I'm like, I want my coffee. Coffee is the one addiction I think is really hard to kick, and I let myself have a moderate amount of it. I try not to go too overboard. I've been trying to be aware. So I got a decaf tea here in Kyle's Bear mug, because that's his dog Bear. So he hooked me up with this today. Shout out to Bear. You might hear him on the background here and there. Who knows? But case in point, like, just waiting a bit for that, letting your body naturally wake up, trying to get outside in the morning, trying to see the sunrise coming up, you'll find it really levels you out, and it's a lot more calming for your system than if you wake up, look right at a phone, get blue light, chug a coffee, kind of hijack everything and just start pumping caffeine in your system. Like, it's really good to be aware of these things, and they're things that are easy to overlook, but doing it over long term, I find my energy has just been so much better because of it. And I love just sharing little hacks and little things that work for me. And I even shared like another supplement I take every morning that I think is fantastic on the Instagram. So if you're not following, once again, you're missing out. Definitely be sure to check that out at ColossusFit, ColossusFit. And one other thought I had today, actually, that was interesting. When I was finishing my sets at the gym today, I looked around and every person except for one was on their phone, just like scrolling, doing something. And I thought it was pretty interesting too. And then later I was looking at like some of the more elite people in there, and I saw in between their sets, they were kind of just zoning out, thinking about the set, breathing, being present. And I think this time of year is a good reminder. The phone can be ultra comforting. I have that urge to get right back on it. I think reels are really hilarious and addictive too. And that's why I stay off TikTok and I try to limit it. Like, I try to do like 30 minutes twice a week. I'm not always perfect, but I try because it is so much fun. But case in point, it can be real easy just to be hyper attached to screens when it gets colder, when it gets darker, and use these opportunities. Like, even for me, I'm really trying to work on being where my feet are. We mentioned this from our conference. So when I'm in the gym, being in the gym, breathing, thinking through my next set, taking some time to look around, just to be present, to breathe, instead of like, set's done, I need to look at my phone. Set's done, I need to look at my phone. And sometimes it's nice having that separation too, because there's always a million things that can pop up on your phone. And obviously too, especially if you get scrolling, it's real easy to get caught up in those habits where your rest that should be 90 seconds ends up being 5 minutes, and then the workout intensity goes in the gutter. So even one of my challenges for myself this month is to really limit dopamine. And I just see dopamine of quick hits, of screens, of like, I find even I kind of get that bug to be like, I need to be on my phone, I need to be on my laptop, I need to go watch something, I need to do this, like, and instead sometimes just enjoying the quiet. And even Andrew Huberman, he's big in like the biohacking and all that stuff. He's an interesting character. I think he's okay. I don't agree with everything he says, but I like some of the things he says. I know we get asked about that a lot, but I think that's like most people. No one agrees on everything. But what he mentioned, and one thing I like doing that I used to do, and I try to do it when I can, is the concept of having a still body, active mind. So what he describes that is any opportunity where you can just be alone in your thoughts, just thinking without needing to move. So without being on a walk, without exercising, whatever, just laying there and letting yourself think through things. And he had mentioned how a lot of the super successful, crazy elites like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, they use this strategy. And he even had mentioned, if you wake up and you have good self-discipline, you can lay in your bed for 5-10 minutes and just kind of think through what you're going to do in your morning. And this is something I tend to do when I can. Once again, I haven't had the liberty to lately, but even during my sets, I find it's a really good time for me to zone out, to think about my day, to think about my workout, to spend some time actually just thinking without having external stimuli telling you what to think. Because when you scroll, of course, you'll find something cool, but you'll be pushed by something to do that. So even though, like, for me, I try to always have a podcast in the background, music and stuff, sometimes it's nice to go on a walk with nothing going on, to just sit there and enjoy scenery, enjoy where you're at. And once again, it's something I'm not perfect with, but I find this season makes you want to be a hermit, use those screens, and just look for joy in any way you can. So this was just one extra thing I wanted to mention to make sure that you're taking advantage this season and not falling into the trap.
I love that. Actually, you're going to really want to tune into this coming Thursday episode, because there's a lot of things that I kind of open up about where I'm trying to be better. And one of those is that screen time. Like, I'm not talking about making the reels for Instagram or talking to you awesome people, but I'm talking about like the scrolling. So I even logged out because I took this tip from Josh. I logged out of my personal Instagram. It's only been 4 days now, but it feels incredible. Like, I haven't been scrolling. I've only been doing what I need to do, and it feels so incredible. But on the topic of Josh talking about like looking around at the gym, lately I've been doing that a lot. And it's funny because, you know, we've been in a really heavy phase, and oftentimes someone will come up and ask Josh a question about, how do you get to that level? How long have you been doing this? You know, even someone the other day said, man, like, you know, how long have you been working towards that bench press or that squat? But especially the bench press. And what I wanted to bring up within this topic, because I got thinking as I was looking around the gym, watching everyone looking at him lifting some heavy weights, is a lot of times people will ask specific questions, but they won't actually put in that work when we give an answer, such as, oh, it's been 8 years of doing this, or, I bench press this many times a day, or sorry, this many times a week. Like whatever it is, I really recommend, like, when you do ask these types of questions, when you're looking to, achieve a body that you ask, where someone says, they have abs and you're like, I want to get to that, follow through with that. Like, actually show up when you ask something like that. I think it just means a lot, because I know most people will, kind of tend to essentially ask a question, but they won't really be willing to put in that work going forward. And then constantly they'll be like, oh, well, I don't have the genetics, or, just they'll kind of make up something as well. So it's just a good reminder, push forward, keep your head up. And, just no matter what it is, even Josh has a thing right here in front of me saying, be uncommon against uncommon men. And I think that's such a great little quote there, because most people don't show up. Most people will make excuses, but if you really want it, you can achieve it.
Yeah, like even just that attitude of saying, like, how can I even take it further? Like, it's so easy to just compare yourself to people around you, and hopefully you're comparing upward, but I know a lot of people compare downward. They'll say, oh, I'm not an alcoholic, I only have 15 drinks a week. I know someone that has 40. Or like, and once again, people can do it positively or negatively, but instead, like, I like the idea of setting a crazy standard and then trying to be crazy within that standard and really pushing it. And piggybacking on what Kyle said, even, I love the concept too of like listening to what people say. I think it's so easy to have someone talk and to fully like just only listen to what you want to hear, not what they're actually saying. Because people come up to me all the time and be like, man, you're jacked, or you're shredded, or you're super strong, or whatever it is, or I don't know. And they'll say, how do you do it? What's the secret? And I'll be like, there's no secret. Just be consistent, eat right, train hard. Like that's truthfully what it boils down to on a micro level. And they'll be like, yeah, okay, cool, but what supplements do you take and what protein powder do you have? And I'm like, that is exactly not the point. Like the magic really lies in those basics there. And like even just listening to that, and when you hear people saying things, like it's good to do that honest work and to like really look at yourself and analyze, like, okay, what is best? Like there's nothing wrong with fully identifying like where you could change, where you can improve, what you could do to really push forward. So that's something that I just also really wanted to go ahead and add on there, because I think it's so well applicable. And I think in every area of life, we all do it to one degree or another. But really sometimes just doing those hard things, winning those micro decisions. One thing I've really challenged my clients with this week is to win the tiny decisions. Like even the decision to get fit, to want to do more, to challenge yourself, and then say, okay, I'm going to make that decision, put in that work. I'm going to get an on-time decision. I'm going to eat a healthy breakfast instead of an unhealthy one, decision. I'm going to go to the gym, decision. I'm going to not overeat at lunch because I know it's going to really throw me off for dinner, decision. And snowballing and piggybacking these things, like it's how you really get big, crazy results. It's not as exciting as if I tell you, hey, buy this brand of protein powder and you'll get crazy results. And you would say that is lying to you and just trying to steal your money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like kind of tying into my last thought here, which is, I feel like super important. I was actually listening to a finance, I was listening to Dave Ramsey recently. I think it's pretty cool how finance and fitness can go hand in hand. As you know, I always try to apply different things to just the journey, essentially, right? I apply fitness to some sort of sport, fitness to just babies recently. Like I was just kind of thinking of some random things, but it is pretty cool. But essentially he was working through someone who was dealing with some stuff, and the quote stood true to me, and I've said it over and over again and it's just so important. When you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, that's when you'll change your life. And essentially this was just someone who was struggling, who was, spending too much, just kind of working through that. And I feel like so many people on their fitness journey need to sit down with themselves and find that thing that really pushes them to take action. I'm not talking about the small thing, just I want to look good for this trip for like 2 days or something like that. But when you can sit down, when you can be real with yourself, when you can find that thing that just really pushes you to take action and commit even on those hardest days, that's when you get the best results possible. And sometimes you have to dig a bit deeper. There's sometimes you have to ask yourself a few more of those right questions. But I truly believe in order to get a meaningful long-term transformation, you have to want it bad enough, and you have to find those reasons to really push yourself, because there will be hard days. There will be those times you don't want to show up. But when you have that deep why, you will be unstoppable. So just wanted to share that with you today.
Yeah, I guess even as we transition to where we're at in our journey, one thing that's really been on my mind is just like taking my goals seriously. I made a post about this in our private coaching group for all of our clients as well, about just the importance of like, actually, if you really want your goals, believing them and putting them over things. Like at night, if Kyle walks up and goes, yo, bro, I got your favorite donuts. There's 6 for you, 6 for me. Naturally, of course, I'm going to say, heck yeah, give me all 6. I'm going to eat them until I get sick. Like, it's going to be so tasty. But when you look at it, you're like, my goals are more important. If I eat 6 donuts, I'm going to feel like trash at night. I'm going to wake up sweating because my body's going to be trying to burn these donuts. The next day, I'm going to feel spilt over. I completely deviated from my calorie goals. It's going to make me feel worse. I'm going to perform worse. I'm going to be more lethargic. And that's the reality, especially if I had all my food. If Kyle goes, hey, I brought these donuts. You can have 6 if you want. I only need 6, and it was a deal for 12 or whatever. I could say, okay, I got my goal. I hit my calories today. I'm going to enjoy it tomorrow. Or I could say, hey, I'm going to have 1 because I'm comfortable with that. It's not going to deter me too much, and I'm going to go bring them from someone else. Or you could just say, I don't even want these donuts. I'm good. And like, there's so many levels, and a lot of people just feel like they have to do things, and they like their goal when it's convenient for them. The second it becomes inconvenient, it's like, oh, I got to wake up an hour earlier so I actually get all my workouts this week. People be like, my goal is not that serious. So if you actually are serious about achieving your goal and you want to do some big things and you want to see big change and you want to be at that next level, it takes you taking that goal serious and doing those hard things when it's inconvenient.
I absolutely love that. And, just transitioning into where we're at, like as well, strength training wise, I believe in the next episode, or maybe it'll be 2 weeks from now, you'll hear our numbers we hit. Super dialed in. I've been spending some good time just getting used to heavier weights, getting acclimated, and just getting really focused, essentially. Like, something a lot of people don't realize. And, even when I hit my 475 pound squat about 3 years ago, most people don't see, but I actually spent so much time visualizing it. I'd write it down. I would, put that as my goal every single day. And I think that's so important. It's something a lot of people don't really kind of think of when it comes to it, but I take these things very seriously. And now, one thing is I feel like I could have definitely done a little bit of a better job committing 100%. And it's something that, like, in full transparency, that I do struggle with is like the thought of where I've been in the past to where I'm at now. And what I mean by that is, when I'm thinking of like my max personal record, 475 pounds, and I'm like probably just going to be getting just over 400, maybe like 425 is my goal, but it'll probably be around 415. I definitely even just like, I'll give all these great tips, but there's always that hard part where it's kind of like you compare and you're like, oh man, like, I've been in this place before. And it's always a tough thing that I feel like no matter what, you'll kind of have to battle through. But it's one of those things where I'm just like, you know what? I'm putting the work. I need to do what I need to do. And that's all that's going to matter going forward. And then we can set some new goals and take it even more seriously pushing forward. But just know if you're ever struggling where, I know I talk to so many people where they're like, oh man, like I used to look like this, and they end up sabotaging themselves because they're not there or because they're a little bit further. But just know that you can commit it. You can commit to it. You can do it. You just have to keep pushing forward for a little bit longer. And anyways, I'm excited to hit some big numbers. Our buddy Jeremy's going to crush it. And let's keep going. I'm pumped up.
Yeah, definitely pumped to see how this goes. And I think it's good having goals and even more goals. Like even right now, just the goal of really doing well in the bulk, putting on a lot of muscle, and then obviously having this fun strength thing. It's extra fuel and incentive to go out there and have that complement your primary goal. So definitely excited to showcase more of that and really demonstrate everything. We're going to go ahead and share a client shout out, then we're going to get into the questions. So who do we got this week?
So this week we have Mollie, who's age 22, and she essentially came in with the goal to hit the high 120s in her body weight. And she's done an incredible job at sticking to the program and doing a body recomposition. So on YouTube, if you're watching, you can see the photos as well as some of her top tips. On Instagram, every Monday, we do post the photo in the afternoon, so you can also see there. But you can see just a completely different person, just fully committed. And she actually has hyperthyroidism. And something that's really cool about this entire coaching journey is the ability to navigate every obstacle and even to be able to see around corners. So a lot of people don't think that they have what it takes for whatever reason, because they've been diagnosed with something, because their family may be, a little bit out of shape, whatever it is. A lot of times there's that doubt and that self-limiting belief. And that's something as a coach, we're able to work around, because we're able to provide a blueprint for you, having had so many people come into the program we can work around a lot of different things. She's lost 3 inches to the waistline. She's gained an inch to her glutes, shoulders, and quads. And like I said, this is a prime definition of losing body fat while building muscle, which is a body recomp. And if you are looking to achieve your beach body, your dream body, whatever it is, we are looking to take on 3 people this week who are absolutely ready to commit, who are looking to get to the next level, who are ready to do their workouts and have a body they never thought possible, go from good to great. All you have to do is send us a message with the keyword Beachbody to our Instagram, which I really hope you're following us there, because if you're not, you're missing out. And our Instagram handle, once again, is ColossusFit, ColossusFit.
Yeah, and that's one thing I want to add. If you take your goals serious, you're going to do what you would do seriously to get there. For instance, if you're like, I want a great education, you don't just naturally just say, I'm just going to hope I learn stuff. Like, you're going to be like, okay, I need tutors. I need to go to school. I need to, whatever it is, buy the best resources, go to a library. And it's similar with fitness. It's just so easy to say, I'm going to be super fit. Just go to the gym and kind of be like a lost puppy and not know where you are in your journey. Having a coach gives you confidence. We're there to give you exactly what you need to make it as efficient, as simple, and as easy to follow as possible, so you can see better results faster. And if you're serious about your health and you want to be around a long time for your family, you want to have energy, you want to maintain your youthfulness, you want to look great, feel fantastic. Like, it's amazing how fitness and health transcends just like the typical, like, I want to look good on the beach, but how amazing you feel and the energy you have and the experiences you're able to do. So don't miss out on it. Take it serious. Make the investment yourself. If you like what we can do for you free over this podcast, imagine what we're going to do one-on-one. So once again, go ahead and DM us. It's a fun one, Beachbody, to our Instagram at ColossusFit, ColossusFit. We'll know you came from that keyword, and you'll be eligible for one of the 3 spots at an amazing deal to level up and see your full potential in fitness, health, and happiness. Now we're going to jump into our questions. So the first question we have is, how many calories should I eat? I'm so lost with what to do. So one thing me and Kyle have really realized is that there's a lot of new people in this podcast, and there's also a lot of people that have been around forever. So it's always a balance, because we're like, oh, we spoke about this, I think, in episode 100, and we realized it's like years ago, and perhaps you haven't heard it. So I've really just been trying to make sure to really have in-depth answers to all questions. So the first thing I'd recommend, if anyone wants to know how many calories to eat, it's insanely confusing. Like, you don't know, like, if you're cutting and you know someone who eats 1,200, then you know someone who loses weight eating 3,600, and you're like, what the heck? Or if you're bulking or if you're maintaining, it's like, where to start? What do you do? The best thing I can recommend for everyone is, if you're not tracking your food, you should be tracking your food. If you take your goals seriously, you will do this. People are going to say it takes so much time. Takes you probably realistically 5 minutes once you're in a rhythm of it. Probably takes me even less, because I have everything in there. When you get started, it may take you 20 minutes, but is 20 minutes worth better results? Absolutely. And we mentioned before, what gets tracked gets managed, and that's how you can actually see progress. So start by tracking your food. See where you're at. Some days you might be eating 2,500, some days 1,200, some days 7,000. You'll be like, oh my gosh, I need to create some consistency here. And you can start to like narrow in on what works for you. And then eventually you're like, okay, I ate 2,300. I felt a good level of satisfaction. I was a little hungry at the end of the day, but I feel good there. Then you eat 2,300 the next day and the next day, and you see your weight stayed super consistent. Chances are you found your maintenance or something near from it. And if you're like, okay, well, I want to be putting on weight, I'm skinny, I want to gain muscle, you would just add calories and see if your weight goes up once you introduce more calories. If it doesn't, you got to add more calories. And our goal too is to be as consistent with this as possible, because a lot of people say they're bulking, they'll just eat whatever, and then one day they'll go out like all you can eat sushi, eat a ton of food and be like, I'm bulking now, or go to a buffet in the morning or whatever it can be. I made that mistake too. It will work, you will put on calories, but if you can give your body a slow drip of excess calories each day, it can use those amino acids to put on muscle, to grow, to develop. And that's why you'll do a lot better regulating it. Of course, if you're in a bulk, you can afford to have more of those fun days. In a deficit, you can definitely afford less. But the case in point, the more you can narrow in on a number that works. I'm eating 3,600 right now, and I'm getting about 0.5 pounds a week. I got less the last week, so I'm going to see if I hit it this week. I'm on track too. And for me, I know I can manipulate that number to achieve my goals. And if I wanted to cut, I could slash that number till I saw the necessary weight loss and follow through from there. So this is such a complex question. I could answer it 100 different ways, but I think this is the best way to answer it, is start by logging it. Don't even set with a goal. Just eat till you're satisfied. Eat when you're hungry. Treat it like a normal day. And you can see where you're at, and you can reflect on the macros you're eating. Are you getting your protein? Are you getting to 1 gram per body weight? And then you can make necessary adjustments from there.
I really like that. And actually, what I'm going to do is, if you're watching on YouTube, this will be good incentive for you to check it out. I'm going to put just a week of logging from our personal spreadsheet and our client spreadsheet just to show you exactly kind of how we would structure it. Because you see so much amazing data. You see how much protein, you see how much cardio. Like, where most people struggle is they don't really have a proper place to look at the progress, to monitor it. You know, we calculate our average weigh-ins because if one day you wake up, you're 180, and then the next day you're 183, and then later you're 175. Like, in your head, you just have all these random numbers, but like you're not really sure what to do with it. Whereas when you calculate the average, when you can see the trends from the spreadsheet, this is something we give to all of our coaching clients and we personally use ourselves, but you can take a look there. And I think the biggest thing is just really trial and error, because you will notice trends. Whereas if you're just looking through MyFitnessPal and you're like, okay, well, like I've had some people say to me just different things. Whereas like when I actually take a look at the data on the sheet, it makes so much more sense. And it's very different as to what someone says based off of like their thoughts, because you might just remember what you did the day before, what your weighing is, and you just might skew the data. Whereas this is tried and true. That's why we get great results. That's why we have a 98% success rate. And yeah, check it out just to get an idea of what we do.
Yeah, and once again, our results are guaranteed. If you sign up, you put in the work, you will see change. It's just about making that investment and coming through. There's a reason we have 3,500 transformations, and we want you to be next. To take advantage of that, once again, message us saying beach body to our Instagram at ColossusFit, ColossusFit. We'll see you over there for sure. And then our next question is how to stop muscle soreness. And I can answer this really quickly by just saying be consistent. You will alleviate so much muscle soreness by just being consistent. Like I get sore a little bit here. I'm like, oh, I'm a little tight, but you don't get that death soreness when you start a new routine and you do any new stimuli to your body. Like especially if you're like painting. Kyle was just painting. He got really sore in his shoulders. He's super strong. He's got huge shoulders. Why is he sore? It's a new motion. Muscles are being ripped up. There's a lot of inflammation in those muscles. It's going to produce a lot of soreness. Whereas I bench press twice a week, every week. Whether I do a ton of weight or less weight, I get moderately sore at best. And that's because my body is used to those patterns. There's less ripping. And you might say, well, if I'm not sore, it means I'm not progressing, right? And that's not the case at all. That's a huge beginner mistake. You want to let yourself get confident and strong in these structures, because that's how you get better. It'd be like a runner be like, I'm not sore from running. Maybe I should do something else so I can progress my running. Like you need to build strength and confidence in those lifts. You need to improve the biomechanics of those lifts, and that will help generate more strength than constantly being wishy-washy and changing things up. Saying so, there are a lot of things you can do to alleviate soreness and recover better. And I know Kyle has an incredible list here, so I'll let him jump into it.
Yeah, I think just even easing into a program is important. You know, for the most part, most people jump into the coaching program, they'll be sore for the first little bit. It's just something different. I think that's very great that Josh mentioned that. Even myself, if I ever skip a leg day, which I try never to, I will always feel it because I've skipped it. So the consistency point was key. If I'm used to using 275 pounds for squats and I'm feeling good, I'm like, you know what, this week I'm going to bump it up 40 pounds. I will be incredibly sore just from new stimulus, more overload and whatnot. But honestly, above and beyond, it's nothing crazy. Hitting your protein every day helps with recovery, getting proper sleep. I do like self myofascial release, so I personally use my lacrosse ball every day. And then that's pretty much it. I just find that it's really good for just kind of the tightness within my muscles. I just find it breaks down the tissue nicely, but some people enjoy it, some people don't. It's just something I personally enjoy. And then just active recovery post-workout has been proven to definitely help as well. If you have an extra 5 or 10 minutes, ride the bike afterwards, do a nice little walk. If you are really struggling with it, those things help. But above and beyond, I like what Josh said, consistency is key, and that will be the most important thing. I'd say also trying not to chase soreness is a great thing, because I'm kind of used to it. It happens. There's always that little bit of, you just know you've worked, but I think too many people are like, I need to be sore, like he said, and it's such a common myth, and I really want you to avoid just trying that, because it's not fun, or it's not needed for overall growth.
Yeah, and every time I start a new routine or I push myself and I do something harder, accept it, embrace it, and your body will adapt. Like, let yourself adapt upward, but really pay attention to the big things, like moderate stress, make sure you're actually getting good sleep. And I'm not just talking about a lot of sleep, like obviously limit caffeine, alcohol before bed, anything that's really going to impede the quality of it. Sleep is so important for building muscle and recovery, and it's something that is too often neglected. So I really just wanted to say too, like you really have to make sure you're taking good care of yourself, you're eating good food. And once again, soreness is to be expected, but it does alleviate, I find, usually after 2 weeks, quite a lot, especially on any new regimen. So do be mindful of that as well. You'll get through it. And I know some people say, I could hardly walk, I hate this, I can't do this the rest of my life. How do you do it? Like, once again, I'm like on a scale of soreness most days, like 1 out of 10. Like, I'd say I'm stiff maybe because I know I lift, but ironically, the days I don't move, because we always say motion is lotion, I feel worse. I feel more stiff. I'm like, I could not live like this, like not lifting. So definitely some amazing tips there. And that's a great question as always. And last but not least, I've been on my fitness and health grind, but I'm nervous for Thanksgiving. I always go off the rails. What are your tips?
I would just say don't go off the rails. I mean, so it's funny because we actually had Thanksgiving recently for us here in Canada. It was just about a month ago. And like, I was actually thinking, and I was talking to some of my clients as well who celebrate here. And one of the biggest things that I personally recognize myself and just think is like very important is that Thanksgiving is a great time with amazing people, you know, lots to be thankful of. But when you look at the food, it's actually like there's some really good options to like hit your macros. And honestly, from my perspective, I look at turkey, you know, we had a Friendsgiving, we had multiple Thanksgivings, all that great stuff. And I felt so good afterwards. And I think it just comes from starting with the right stuff first. Like I look at turkey as a great source of protein. A lot of times there's some incredible veggies. And I think it's just really looking at it and just kind of keeping control. Like it's obviously, I'm sure Josh will have quite a few different tips as well, but I just like, I look at these foods, I'm like, okay, how can I plan ahead? How can I, you know, just budget a certain amount of calories so I can enjoy the stuff? But I think it's just like kind of filling up on the good stuff and really just like not trying to have all the extra stuff and just like going off on that end. And I think when you start with like a good, nutritious, balanced plate, it kind of leaves you in a good direction. And that's one of my greatest strategies, personally speaking. And once again, I never feel horrible afterwards. And I feel like I still stay on track by filling up on the turkey, by filling up on the veggies and all the great stuff. And that's personally my number one biggest tip.
Yeah, to me, Thanksgiving is a time to be thankful for just being around people, appreciating people's company and enjoying time with family, enjoying tradition, all of these great things. And I think if you just avoid being excessive in general, you're going to have such a better time. So, you know, have a drink if you want to drink. There's no need to just absolutely overdo it every day and have like a crazy huge pack of beers. I know that's where people go wrong, or they'll be like, I love pumpkin pie, I need to eat 2 pumpkin pies. And you're like, okay, have a slice. Like the first 5 bites will taste the same as the next 50, and you won't feel miserable because of it. And like Kyle said, the food is so good in quality. If you have a lot of veggies, you have a lot of protein, it's going to make it so easy. Then go enjoy a piece of pie, have a fun drink, have whatever fun food it is you and your family have to celebrate for that time. Enjoy being around friends. Like being in front of it, and even as we mentioned before, like protein fasting, so only having protein earlier in the day, saving more carbs and fats for later, eating healthy meals around it, getting in lots of water, taking breaks, taking a little longer to chew your food, all these typical things. To me, Thanksgiving is like the easiest one. So those are just some extra tips there. If you want a whole dedicated episode, it's an old one I did previously solo, which is kind of funny, but it is a great episode. We'll link that in the show notes as well, so you can go ahead and check that out. And we want to thank you so much for listening and tuning in today. We appreciate it as always. Lots of great info in this episode, but knowledge is only power when applied. So get out there, use it, and become fitter, healthier, and happier.